Good evening, everyone. So in our last class, we were discussing about this UV visible spectroscopy, and over there we have seen that in this UV visible spectroscopy, there are usually two sources. One is UV light source, and there is another visible light source, and then these lights they interact with the matter, and over the matter it is being made incident using a series of optical devices that includes collimators, mirrors and lenses. So we call it optical devices, and then after the interaction with the matter, the radiations are being transmitted through the matter and some of the incident light it is being absorbed. So if we call it as IA, so initially if I call it as a I0, and then some of the incident radiations are being absorbed by the matter, and we have IT, which is basically lower than the I0. So I0, IT is lower than the I0, and then this IT, the incident radiations, these are transmitted radiations, they are then um, collected using a detector. Okay. Okay. So this was the basic architecture, right? So this is what we were talking about. This is the conventional single beam spectrophotometer. So we have the light source, then there is only one path. So through this path, which we call is this optical devices. So in the optical devices, we have the collimator. Then we have prism upgrading, which helps us in spectral decomposition. And then we have an wavelength selector. So these three components within a spectrophotometer, it helps in converting a polychromatic light to a monochromatic light. Herein we have monochromatic light, and over here we have polychromatic light. Okay. Now this monochromatic light, they then interact with the materials. Okay, and then we the transmitted light it is being made incident onto the detector. So in um, the main point over here is that the light which is interacting with the sample, it is a monochromatic light. Okay. Uh, there is another important thing which I would like to mention. If we replace this combination of the optical devices, that means the collimator, the prism or grating, and the wavelength selector. This part, if we change it or replace it using a color filter, then the system is regarded as colorimeter. And usually the colorimeter, it works in the visible range. Are you getting my point? So usually a colorimeter, it has around 7 to 10 wavelength selector. Or we can call these as filters, optical filters. Optical filters, or we can also call it as color filters. Okay. So rest of the architecture, it remains the same. Okay. If you remember correctly, in our last class, we have talked about this type of what is the wavelength range. So if we devise a filter for each of these, then we fit in a machine so that as we move around the filter holder, at the first instance, a violet will be in the path between the light source and the sample. Then the color filter would be the violet one. Then as you change the filter holder, then you can get either the indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red light. In that case, what you are doing basically, with the help of the color filter, you are creating a monochromatic light. Okay, you are using a monochromatic light. But the disadvantage of the colorimeter is that at some particular wavelengths only you will be able to measure the thing. So if you see over here, if you create a violet filter, it is having approximate what do you call the wavelength span of 400 to 420 nanometer. Okay, so that means the wavelength span is 20 nanometer. However, if you use any UV spectrophotometer, due to the what you call motorized uh, activity of these prisms or grating and the wavelength selector, you can get a very narrow band of monochromatic light. So that is one of the major disadvantages. However, these color filters, they are quite cheap. They can be used in labs in a very easy manner. Okay, you can also design this kind of color emitters in your lab pretty easily. Okay. Now, again, coming over here, if you see, we discussed in our last class that UV visible split beam spectrophotometer, we use two types of lamps. One is tungsten lamp, which is for the visible light, and the D2 lamp for the UV light. Now, or the UV radiation, UV light or UV radiation, whatever you call. Then they are made incident on the mirror. Then it enters into a monochromator. So within the monochromator, we have the diffraction grating. So this one, it is the diffraction grating. Now, the thing is that if you see the position of the entrance slit and the position of the exit slit, they are stationary. Okay. Since they are stationary, so what it is done, this diffraction grating, it is being attached with a mechanized motor which changes the position of this diffraction grating. And while you are changing this diffraction grating, what happens initially? This maybe the red light, it is over here, or the violet light, it is near to the exit slit. So the UV or the violet light, it comes out of the exit slit and so on. And as you move the position of this diffraction grating, you get specific monochromatic light. Okay. The another important thing. So if you see over here, in both the cases, if you say the conventional single beam spectrophotometer or you talk about split beam spectrophotometer, in both the cases, we need a large number of motorized systems. If you look over here, we need a couple of detectors and the arrangement is quite complex over here. Okay, so this is one of the major disadvantages of this kind of spectrophotometers. So over here, if you see, we have to use a lot of motorized systems. So if something goes out of order, then we have to wait for the technician who is a qualified personnel to come and look into the this what you call to look into this setup and rectify it. Okay, the advancements in the electronics, especially the solid static electronics, it is now possible to design using imaging sensors. Okay, so this is an important thing. So now the designing of this imaging sensors, and even designing of the spectrophotometer using imaging sensor, it is very easy, and anyone, in fact, any one of you, if you are having is very access to a very small lab, you can design your own spectrophotometer. Okay, so let's discuss about how this image processing based spectrophotometer they work. Okay, uh, I would like to tell you that the schematics of the spectrophotometer which has been given over here, it was developed in our lab, okay, by one of the MTech students. It is pretty simple. Okay, so you need a light source. Basically what we have discussed, we need a light source. So we have the light source. So for how you will be powering this light source, you will be powering the light source through the mains, right? So from here it will be powering the light. Now in between, what you will be having, you will be having a sample holder. Okay, now once you have the sample holder, after that you will be having a slit which will allow only a certain portion of the light to pass through. Okay, now this light which is exiting will be made incident onto a camera. Onto a camera. Now you said, sir, how we are then this decomposing the white light, okay, or in other words, how we are performing the spectral decomposition. If you see, just in front of the camera there is a green slide, and this green slide is nothing but a diffraction grating. Okay, is a diffraction grating. Now what happens? Now if you look over here, in this case, in the case of image processing based spectrophotometers, there is a subtle difference between the image processing based spectrophotometer and the conventional spectrophotometers. in the conventional spectrophotometers, if you see the monochromatic beam of light, it was interacting with the sample, right? However, in the case of image processing based spectrophotometers, if you see the light source, it is directly incidentating the light onto the sample. Okay, so the interaction of the sample is with chromatic light. Now the decomposition of the of the polychromatic light, it happens after the light has interacted with the sample and it is being carried out using a diffraction grating. Okay. Now this, after this, the diffraction grating, after it is being what you call decomposed, it forms an image over the image over the imaging sensor in the camera. Okay, are you getting my point? So look over here. What happens? You have the diffraction grating. White light through this slit, it is coming, and after it passes through the diffraction grating, there is spectral decomposition. Okay. Like this, there is a spectral decomposition. Now, after there is this spectral decomposition, if you have a CMOS chip, over here, so what is happening? This light, the decomposed light, it is falling on the surface of the chip. So what it is doing, what the camera is doing, it is basically capturing the spectrum of the light, of the decomposed light, across the wavelength range. Okay, now you need to optimize the distance between the diffraction grating and the imaging sensor so that you get a very good resolution. The reason being, suppose if you move it slightly towards the grating, then if you see the diffracted light, it is incident only onto a small region. So if you consider the length of this small sensor, all the spectrum, it will be within a very small area and you will not be getting a proper resolution. Okay. However, if you move forward and if you place it such that the whole of the length of the image sensor, it is being covered by the uh, decomposed spectra, then you will be getting an improved resolution. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay. Another important thing which you might be interested in, what do you call, what do you call, you might be interested to optimize, it is the distance of this arrangement of this diffraction grating plus camera arrangement from that of the slit. When we are talking that we are having a slit, it is expected that the light will be moving in a straight line. Okay. However, it is not the case. As the light, it passes through the this slit, it slowly strives. It slowly is diffusing out. Okay, we call the diffusion of the light. There is a diffusion of light, and you do not want that there is when your light enters the diffraction grating plus camera arrangement, there is a significant diffusion of the light. Otherwise, what it will do, it will compromise the quality of the signal what you are getting over the CMOS sensor. In place of the CMOS sensor, it is possible to design similar kind of arrangement using CCD imaging sensors, which are basically the charged coupled detectors. Also, in recent past, there's photodiode array systems they have also been used. However, recently with the immense advancement in the field of CMOS sensor technology, nowadays mostly the CMOS sensors are being used to this kind of image processing based spectrophotometers. Okay. Do you guys have any question up to this?
No, sir.
No? Is that once you get the image through the camera, you take the signal or the image into a processor, and then you develop your own program to get the this visible spectra or the UV visible spectra of the sample you are trying to test. Okay. Now, this is the analysis of food color solution using the spectrophotometer, which one of your fellow students he had developed in my lab. Okay. Now, if you see here, I have used a food color wherein you have orange. The color, the food color is the orange red food color, and it contains basically sunset, FCS, and carmozine colors. Okay, so it is a combination of these two. So the first one, it is the normal water because you have dissolved the solution, the food color in water. So it is the normal water, and then we have this food colors dissolved in water in high. As we move from B to E, there is an increase in the concentration. Okay, so you can also see over here, left to right, the color is getting more and more darker. So using the reference, which is the water over here, these images were taken. Okay. Now, if you see over here, you are getting a spectral decomposition. Spectral decomposition, right? Now, if you see majority of the part of the sensor, it has remained unutilized, and the student did not have the time to optimize the thing due to the COVID this thing. He has already submitted his thesis, so maybe if any one of you is interested in future, or maybe your junior, they may work on this and they may try to optimize the thing. Okay, so the thing over here is that the main thing is that if you see how the decomposed spectra it is being captured and how it appears over the imaging sensor. Okay. Now, if you see, we have used this orange red color, this thing, at the low concentrations, we are getting some blue components, right? Over here, we are getting the blue components which is passing. When we again increase the concentration in C, see the blue component has significantly reduced. Okay, and in D and E, you can see there are no blue colors. Okay. So there are no blue colors. Okay. Why this is coming? Anyway, so there are no blue colors over here. Now, why this is happening? Can anyone tell me? What is the reason? Why? As we are increasing the concentration of the food color in water, this blue component, it has been completely suppressed. No one?
So maybe the food color is absorbing the blue, I mean wavelength of that.
Yeah, that is true. But any other better explanation? Anyone else? No? Okay. What happened? Yeah. If you look over here, what is happening? We are having this orange color over here. And we said here in our last class that if we have an orange filter, if we place an orange filter in the light, it will block this blue color. So herein, if you look over here, we have put the sample over here. So it is a colored solution. It is basically the solution. It is acting as a color filter. And due to this reason, due to this your complementary action, complement color, this arrangement, this orange colored solution, it is blocking the blue light. Okay. Now the thing is that from this spectrum, we got the spectrum plot. Now in the spectrum plot, if you see near this bluish region, we got some output. However, over here, if you see at a specific this thing, we got a small peak. If you correlate over here, we are having a small peak, right? And then in the higher concentration, we have almost nothing. So if you see over here, this is a very simple arrangement, right? And any one of you can make it in your home, in your lab, if you have access to some specific components at your home, okay, or in your lab. Now, one typical question is, can anyone tell me how we can get to the spectrum plot from these images? Anyone? Because none of, right? So it is understood that all of you know how we can get the spectrum plot from here. So are you getting my point? So can you tell, can anyone tell me how we can get to the spectrum plot from here? Any idea? Anyone? The thing is that we need to select a very small band. Say the band is of 4 pixels. Okay. So I have just zoomed this band over here. So we are having pixels, right? Like this. And all of this. So this is pixel number, say 0, 0 column, 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, and so on. Similarly, in the y-axis also you'll be having 0, 1, 2. And again, if you say, as I told you, that we are considering 4 bins. So we'll be having something like that. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now what we would do, so what does this pixel contain? This pixel contains intensity values. Okay. So what we do is basically in the 0th column, we calculate the average of this one. So from here, we get to a point where we are having only an array of single pixel. How we get that? We get that by averaging this 4 pixel values. Okay. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you, whatever the intensity value you get, you do the averaging, and for the 0th position, whatever the average value is there, you put it over here. Then for the first pixel, you do the averaging from here, and then for the second pixel, second position pixel, 0, 1, 2, second pixel, you do the averaging from the top and you put in the values. Okay, so in this way you get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to say n values. Okay, so from here, pixel values, it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and up to n value, and accordingly you get the plot. Now the question arises, how did we get this wavelength value? How did we get this wavelength value? Anyone who can tell us or tell me how we can do it? We can do it by taking a typical number of sources there are some lasers which are having specific wavelengths. You can have UV laser or blue laser. You can have a green laser. You can have a red laser, and you know the position or you know the wavelength values of these lasers. So using the same thing, you can find out the position of the specific laser, say lambda blue, lambda green, and lambda red. Okay, so say for example, it comes at say third position. So here we are having lambda blue. Lambda green, say it comes at around say 20th position. Okay, and lambda red, it comes at around say 35. Okay, so you can plot a linear thing where you can have pixel values. We can have a relationship between the pixel values and the wavelength. You will be getting 3 points, and from here you can generate an equation, and using this equation you can provide each of the pixels a specific wavelength value. Okay, right? So this assigning of the specific pixel values assigning of the specific wavelength values to the these pixels, it is called as the we can call that as the lookup table, because using this equation what you are doing, you are basically creating a lookup table which is called LUT. I was discussing, I was telling you that from this image, say if we take a series of pixels and then we have some vertical bins. So what we do, we average the values of the say 0 column then 0 pixels. Then we will be having the average values over here. In the one, we will be having the average values of the second column and so on. And from there, we get the pixel versus intensity levels. Now, how to find out what is the wavelength over here? What pixel corresponds to what wavelength? So as I told you, for that, we have certain lasers, say laser of blue, green, red. We use those lasers and then we determine the positions at what position we are getting the peaks, and from there we create a lookup table, and from that lookup table we then assign each pixels a particular wavelength, and once we do that, then we can get and pixel intensity versus the wavelength values. Okay. Now the types of the detector. So the conventional spectrophotometers, they use phototube and photomultiplier tube. Okay, so in a phototube, it consists of a light sensitive cathode and an anode inside an evacuated quartz multiplier tube and it is the most popular detector which is used in UV visible spectroscopy. It comprises of a photosensitive cathode, anode, and several diodes. Okay, and then, as I was telling you previously, there are these photo array detectors, diode array detectors. So we have photodiodes which have been converted into the photodiode arrays, and they are used. And then we have the charged coupled detectors, which are also regarded as the CCDs, charged coupled detectors, and they are also used. Now, a typical phototube, it looks something like this. A photon, which is basically the light photon, it falls onto the cathode, and from there electrons are being released, and these electrons, they are being then accelerated towards the anode, and due to this movement of the electron from the cathode to the anode, an electrical current is generated, and that current is being sensed. However, the sensitivity of the phototube is quite less. Due to this reason, photomultiplier tubes are used. So over here you have the light beam which is entering into the photomultiplier tube, and it goes and it strikes onto a scintillator, and this scintillator, it generates some electrons, and then those electrons, they are being accelerated towards the photocathode, and from there the photocathode, it generates some electrons over there. The scintillator, it generates some photons, sorry, scintillators, it generates some photons, and these photons, they are being accelerated towards the photocathode, and when these photons, it goes and hits the photocathode, it generates electrons, and these generated electrons from the photocathodes, they are amplified by the diodes, and then ultimately the amplified electrons, the number of electrons, is goes and it hits the anodes, and likewise the signal is being amplified, and that the amplified signal is being detected. Okay, then as I was telling you, diode array. In the diode array, if you see, there are a series of diodes which are there, and this light from the grating monochromator, that means the what do you call decomposed spectral components, they fall onto the diode array and they are being sensed. Similarly, we have a charge coupled detectors. In the charge coupled detectors, you have seen an array of detectors which get the similar kind of thing happens over there, and you can get the things. And the quantum efficiency of the charge coupled detector is very high. And if in some cases, if you have to, if you have a condition where you have very small signal components, so over there usually you have very low SNR, signal to noise ratio. In those cases, the CCD detectors, they can be used. Otherwise, if you have sufficiently good amount of signal component, then nowadays CMOS sensors, they are used, and they provide a better signal to noise ratio. Okay, another important thing between the CMOS array and the CCD arrays is that for each of the, say, array components, the sensing array components, the CMOS sensor, it is having amplifier for each of these sensing elements. Okay, however, for CCD architecture, if you see, for all these arrays, they have a single amplifier. Okay, if you see the output node, it is only a single output node. Okay, so all of these columns, it will be first, it will be discharged, and the signal will be sent to the amplifier and it will be amplified. Then the next row these signals, they will be sent into the amplifier and in this way. So for all of these processes, for all of these sensors, even the single most smallest sensors or the arrays of the sensor, you have only one amplifier, and hence the analysis of the CCD architecture. However, as I told you, quartz or fused silica, visible spectrum analysis, you can use silicate glass, you can use acrylate cuvettes, you can also use quartz and the fused silica, because uh, this quartz and the fused silica, if you see, they work not only from the UV region, they cover the whole of the UV visible and up to a certain extent the IR region also. Okay. On the contrary, if you see the glass cell, they are only active in the visible region and the IR region. Okay. And cuvette size, in most cuvette, the most cuvettes are designed to fit a 1 centimeter square holder in the instrument. Okay. So this is a quartz cell. For the IR cell, it is 220 to 3200 nanometer. So these are used for UV visible near IR spectrometer, NIR spectrometer. Okay, then we have disposable polystyrene cells. They have a limited wavelength range 340 to 750, and disposable PMMA cell, they are used mostly in the visible region 285 to 750. Some of the UV samples, it covers some of the UV region, but it does not cover the whole of the UV region. If you want to cover the whole of the UV region, we have to use the quartz cell. Okay, so today we will stop over here.